right, Mr. Keith Gooseby, our very own Keith Gooseby. I get to say our very own because Keith is also giving back, and he actually is on our board of directors as well for the Enlisted Leadership Foundation, doing amazing things. And man, Keith, thanks so much for taking time. I know you're a busy man. You still work for the Navy as well from a different perspective. You are a civilian leader and speaker on leadership and resiliency and life coaching. You are starting your own business at the same time, and all the while have the experience of being one of the most well-known enlisted leaders, making all the way to the Force Master Chief of the Third Fleet?
No, AirPac. Common AirPac.
AirPac, that's right, AirPac. Sorry, I didn't read fast enough down here.
That's okay. That's okay. We're good.
I just remember you being in part of, I've met you through various, the three degrees of separation. It feels like we were always bumping into each other in different parts of our lives. So, just being able to, connect with you and everything that you've done with the foundation's been pretty inspiring. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I got to ask you a question, right?
Yes, sir. Go for it.
All right. So I'm going to recycle one because I'm really interested in your answer. What is your spirit animal and why?
My spirit animal. Ooh, wow. I'm going to say, can I have two?
Sure. This is your rule.
I'm going to say a lion and a lamb. Okay, because the lion in me says that spiritually I need to be assertive. I can't wait on things. I need to be assertive myself. The lamb in me says, but I need to also be a follower. I need to have the grace to kind of sit back and allow someone else to take the lead and just be able to relate to people. So I like the lion and the lamb. So I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely, man. I think that is awesome. That's an awesome answer, right? Because it's a true statement, right? Sometimes we have to lead, sometimes we have to follow. And that's where we just have to recognize our strengths and weaknesses and make sure that we're in the right positions to do it. So, so Keith, as we talked about before, man, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you have some amazing words of wisdom to share with everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step off here, turn off my video. The floor is going to be yours. I'll step back in towards the end, and we'll do a little Q&A session, okay?
Okay.
Thanks, brother. See you in a second.
Okay.
So without further ado, allow me to do my introduction. The man, the myth, the legend, Keith Gooseby!
I don't get many introductions like that. Hey, good morning, folks out there. What I like about this, I don't even know who's listening. I don't know where you are in life. You could be the CEO of a company. You could be the airman that just joined the Navy. Airman, I was an airman. You could be, from all cross sections of life. And what I'm talking about is today, but the point I want to talk about is pursuing balance in our leadership role, in our role of leadership. Let me just say that from a leadership standpoint, it doesn't matter which one of those you are that I just talked about, you still are in a position of leadership. You see, some people are in a position of leadership because they were designated a leader. It's a position that they were put in, or they achieved that climbing the ladder of success. And then other people are leaders because you just are. You just have influence. And so we all have an opportunity to influence people. And so we all have a bit of that leadership piece in our lives. And so we'd be good to remember that even from far off people are sometimes watching us. I've had people tell me that have said to me that they followed my leadership, they followed me and how I influenced them. And I never shook hands with the person before. And they did it just by observing, just by watching. So you're being watched, and so you are a leader. So as we talk about that, I want to kind of get into leadership and being balanced and what it's all about. Now, let me just start by saying, we're in a very unfortunate time with the coronavirus, and, my heart is out to those people who've been negatively impacted, and so many have been. And it's very unfortunate. I wish I could say that it's over, but it's not, and so many will be. So we're in a very unfortunate time. And so, my heart just goes out to people. But I want to say also that we're in another time also. We're in a time where we can take advantage of some things happening. For instance, we're at home now, for the most part. Not everybody is, but many of us are at home. We're spending more time at home than we have before. Kind of funny is I'll be retiring totally and do my own business shortly here. And one of the things I was wondering, okay, so when my wife and I start spending all of our time together, what's it going to be like? Guess what? I got a chance to test it out. And I found out that it's going to be pretty doggone good. So now I'm even more anxious for looking forward to retirement. But it's all about being in balance. And I've talked to people. Even last night I was talking to. He was telling me that he wishes some things about himself were different as he finds himself working from home and he's with his wife and he's with his kids all day and he finds himself snapping and he finds different things taking place. I submitted to him and I submit to you today that as we pursue balance, this is a great time. If you're in that situation and you're discovering some things about yourself, that is great to discover things about ourselves, but it doesn't stop with discovery. It moves on to, okay, so what am I going to do with this discovery? And whatever we do, it has to be something that we thought about and it has to be decisive, okay? So I've been in some pretty demanding leadership positions in my life. In my lifetime, and I've enjoyed them. And I found out that the more that my personal life was in balance, the more effective, the more efficient I was in my job at work. Now, I want to be clear. You can have your life totally out of balance and still lead. That can be done. But I don't believe that you'll be the effective leader, the efficient leader that you can be if your life is in balance. And there's different things that happen. And we're putting ourselves at risk, and even the people who work for us when we keep ourselves out of balance. My experience is that you won't be as effective as you could be if you had a balanced life. So when we're out of balance, what tends to happen, is that stress is added on. Now, when I talk about stress, there's good stress and there's bad stress. I want to refer to this lady who wrote a book, this Dr. Carolyn Leaf. She wrote a book called Who Switched Off My Brain? And when you think of that, many of us can identify real quickly. Like, yeah, I have those switch off moments. And in her book, she kind of talks about that because we get to a point where we don't function as normally as we otherwise could. But she makes the assertion in her book, she's a neuroscientist, and she makes the assertion in her book that 80% of illness comes from stress. 80%. So let's just say she's not smart as me, and so let me just give you my number. Maybe it's only 40%, but think about it. 40, 80, whatever. That's a lot of illness coming from stress. But if it's affecting me and I'm becoming to the point that I'm becoming ill, how else is it affecting me, and how is that playing out in my everyday role as a leader in the leadership position that I'm in? So it's kind of hard for me, and it was when I was on active duty, and even today, when someone wants to be my mentor, they should be my mentor. They should be the coach that I'm going to. I can follow them professionally, technically, but if life is out of order and I can see that, I don't know that I give them my total trust. If you can't run your life, how can you help me run mine? Is the question that I have. And so they weren't as effective with me as they possibly could have been, and I in turn am not effective with people as I can be if I were in balance and if I was taking care of a business in the many different areas of my life. And so we give off signals in different ways. We may think that no one can see that things are happening with me, but we do give off signals after a while. Some people can mask it for a while, but it comes out. And when it does, we lose effectiveness and we lose efficiency. So I'm not talking about, are you a leader and are you a good leader? I'm saying how to operate at peak efficiency as a leader. We need to have our lives in balance. So I think Dr. Carolyn Leaf is right on point. One of the things about the stress that she refers to, there's positive stress. And you've done this before. The stress of, I was an aircraft electrician. The stress that this plane has to be fixed and this thing has to launch in the next hour, the next whatever. That kind of stress can be positive stress. It gets your mind to thinking. It helps you get good recall of things. It helps you operate at a faster pace and still keeping it safe. So, the basketball player who, the clock is running down and they have the ball and they need this shot to go off. That can be a positive kind of stress where they call everything that they have and everything they train to so that they can make that shot, they can make that play. But the negative stress is totally different in that the negative stress, particularly when it's uncontrollable and unmanageable, or at least we perceive it as uncontrollable and unmanageable, it plays on us throughout the day. And it plays on us when it's time to take that shot sometime. It plays on us in different areas. And so, and I think of the example, you may have your own, or you may know someone who has those examples, but you have a very tight deadline, but you also have some things at home that are pressing as well. And so I have to deal with 2 or 3 different things at the same time. And some of these things that are pressing at home could have been taken care of, okay? It doesn't have to be like that. So the stress then, the stress that comes from that can be a negative stress, and it can take my mind off of the mission. It can take my mind off of what I'm doing. It can affect me negatively in different ways. So I think it's crucial that we understand this thing about pursuing, being in balance and pursuing balance. And I'll talk about being and pursuing, if I might. So balance is noun, okay? It's what it is. I mean, if you look at something that's balanced right now, if you have something in your office or whatever that's balanced right now, it's a noun. The pursuit of balance it's also a verb. Things don't stay like that way all the time. For instance, the airplane that's flying, as it burns fuel, it doesn't keep the same attitude that it was when it was heavy with fuel. It has to change and adjust. So even now today, with where we are with the coronavirus, things that are happening around us, we had to change some things, and what worked yesterday is not what's going to work today. So we're pursuing balance from working at home or from whatever it is I'm doing. So balance is something that we achieve, but we can't rest on that. We have to keep pursuing it, and that's why people like Scott and Mac and others, they talk to you about reading books and staying up on the latest, those types of things. You're always in pursuit of ensuring that I'm in balance, regardless to what comes up. So and I think this time that we're in gives us an opportunity to look at that, look at our lives and we can see some things that we hadn't seen before, like that one fellow I was telling you about, who was saying that some things are happening at home. We can look at things that we thought were going good. We thought everything was fine with the 2 or 3 quality hours I spent with my children every day, or in some people's case, maybe a week. That would be a shame. And now I'm at home all day long, and we find out the balance wasn't what I thought it was, or maybe it was good where it was before, but now I have to adjust to while I'm at home. So I want you to imagine, if you will, just look at different areas in your life. Think of your relationships with people. Think of your finances, quality time with your children, investing in your purse, your dating and romance, married or not, your dating and romance. And just add more to that list, and we'll come back to that in a bit. But I want to tell you a story, and some of you, depending on who you are, you might have heard me tell the story, heard me tell the story before, but I'll go into it anyway. And there's a guy you can actually look up online, a guy named John Woodruff, and he was in the Olympics, and I think it was 1934, 1936, not sure the year. I know how old I look. I was not there, okay, but. He's running in the Olympics, and he's running the 800 meters. And when as he's running, that's one of those races that when you run, you're running all out. I mean, you know, this is not one of those jogging things. This is you're running all out, and you cannot afford to slip or anything. And the New York Times had an article on him during this time frame that said John Woodruff does the unthinkable, and the unthinkable was while he was in this race, he found himself in a position where there was a person in front of him, there was a person beside him, there was a person behind him, and there was grass on the inside, and he really had nowhere to go. His potential, he knew, was to be able to win the race. That was his potential. But where he found himself blocked in was that I'm not going to win if I'm here. So he did the unthinkable in a race where you can't afford to slow down at all. He stopped. He stopped. And you can look it up for yourself. So when he stopped, he moved out to one of the lanes, and he took off again, and he actually came back and he won that race. So let's review that for a minute. He analyzed where he was at. He knew what his potential was, but he analyzed where he was at, and he came to the conclusion that I have things that are blocking me in, and I can't move ahead. I can't get where I need to be at, or where I know I could be at. We have to ask ourselves, what things are blocking us in, as we think about this balance in our lives? What things are stopping me from being what I really could be? Okay. He had to choose a plan of action. And his plan of action that he chose was he was going to stop. so that he could start all over again. Okay, what's your plan of action? When you come across those errors and we come across these things that we discover, what's our plan of action to get ourselves back in balance? Okay, we need to have one. And once he knows it, he knew what his potential was. I think most of us know our potential, and even if we don't, I can assure you that we all have a good amount of potential. And so once he figured that out, then he made a decisive move. He did something that wasn't popular with many people who were looking at it at the time. I'm sure his coach was having a heart attack on the side when he saw his runner stop. Okay. But sometimes you have to do that. We have to assess where we are, and we just have to stop and figure out, okay, what do I need to do? And I think right now, even unfortunate as it is that we're locked in our homes, not locked in. I like my home. I'm enjoying this, okay, to some degree. Even though that's where we are, we still have to figure out for ourselves, what do I need to do? What decisive action do I need to take to improve on those areas that I can see need to be improved on, that I might get myself in balance, that I might be able to operate at peak efficiency, peak effectiveness, and I might be that leader who not only is great at leading, but I have people coming to me because they trust me, they observe, and they trust, and they want to find out what drives me and what helps me get to where I am. And so I'm able to mentor and coach better because I have my own life in balance. And so I'm going to leave you with this thought, and then I'll stop. So think of a pie or a wagon wheel, and think of the slices in it, okay? And then put in those slices, like we talked about your relationships, we talked about quality time with the kids, we talked about your dating, your romance, your finances, etc. And you put whatever else there. And you look at each of those things, now that we have them all divided up, or you can just line them up side by side. And then I want you to think of the stoplight. The stoplight is a very simple analogy, but it helps us. It's, red is stop, green is go, and depending on what state you're in, amber could mean either hit the gas and go fast, or it could mean prepare to stop. We know it should be prepared to stop. And then line those things up. So let's just take finances. I'll just use one example. Let's take finances. Green is I'm making all my payments on time. I'm able to put away money. I'm able to pay me first and put away finances, etc. Amber is I'm right on that edge. I can't afford for anything to go wrong. And red is I'm going in the hole each time. So we need to, like John Woodruff, maybe stop, analyze where I'm at, look at what I have to do, know what my potential is, and then I need to take decisive action. And we can do that in any one of those categories. Now, I just gave you that stoplight thing to take a look at. But you can even put that on paper. You can make a notebook with those different columns in it. But anyway, I want to end on that note, and that is that it's so important that we not only that we're good leaders, and not only that we're doing okay in life, but that we pursue a balance. And it's even a health imperative, as Dr. Leaf pointed out. It leads to 80% of my illnesses could go away if I wasn't stressed. Wow, that's amazing. So anyway, I think Travis is probably back, and I'm going to allow Travis to give me a couple of questions if he has any.
All right, Keith, man, thank you so much, brother. Look, I just let you know, I didn't want to interrupt you, but just so you know, your video was in and out, but your audio was pretty good. So everybody still got the message, I think. So, but man, I tell you what, that's some great stuff you had out there, Keith, as always, man. I mean, for people who don't know Keith from a personal level, if you probably worked for him or in some position, this guy is the most humble, down-to-earth guy you'll ever meet. And I mean, just, if I got to say, Keith, what I've noticed, if I was going to pick one trait about you, is that you truly do take the whole concept of listening, of active listening, to a whole new level. Because Keith does not say anything unless he has something to say. And when he has something to say, we all stop and listen. And that's right there a true, like, how influence works, right? So that being said, my first question for you is, how do you influence others to accept your ideals and concepts?
How do I influence others to accept them? Well, I'm going to go back to what you just said. Sometimes I have to just listen to what they're saying. I validate people. Because I disagree with you does not mean I validate you. People. And in my language, Travis, sometimes I don't use the but word sometimes when somebody has an idea. I like to not say but. I like to say and. Okay? I like to acknowledge that, this person's a good thinker. They have a good idea. It just, and based on all the facts that they have, they're given a great input. So I think validating people, and people want to be valued, valuing people. I think once I can do that, and not just as a step in dealing with people, but as that's who I really am, is that I value people and I validate them. I think people are more willing to be open and to hear what it is that you have to say.
That's awesome, man. That's great word. So if that's the case, so if you know that, so obviously that's a very good way to point it out. We're getting some great comments here. And again, guys, if y'all have any questions for Keith, please post them on Facebook or in the Zoom, and I'll go ahead and ask these questions live. We have about 5 more minutes with Keith. So I'll go ahead and ask you another question. In your experience, what is, in your opinion, the most difficult part of being a leader of an organization?
I think the most difficult part, I think the most difficult part for me was learning, and I'm gonna go back to the last thing. It was learning to validate people. Can I give you an example of something that happened in my career at one point?
Please.
So as an aircraft electrician,
real quick, buddy, before I interrupt you, I want to make sure people hear your words because you're kind of in and out. I'm going to turn off your video so that the bandwidth can go out, and I want everybody to be able to hear your answers because I don't. It sounds like you might have some bandwidth issues on your end. So I'm going to turn your video off, and that way we can get a better sound from you. All right, go ahead, Keith. Sorry about that.
Okay, and your question was the most difficult part. So correct. I remember one time. I just took over in a work center as the supervisor, and there was a young petty officer, junior to me. I was the first class, he was the second class petty officer, and he had an idea on how to fix a discrepancy on an airplane. He'd been working on these planes. I hadn't been working on them, but I had competency as an electrician. I could read wiring, and I could understand it. And I knew already what he was saying was not going to work, and I told him that. And he said to me, Travis, he said, you know, Petty Officer Gooseby, you come here acting like you know everything, and we've been working here all this time. That was a challenge to me. It's like, oh, well, how do I deal with that, you know? Right. But again, I want to validate him. So I analyzed this issue, this thing he was going to fix. And I looked at it, and I thought, what's the worst thing that happens if he doesn't fix this thing right? If a pilot in the air found himself in an emergency, is this thing going to make a difference? And after analyzing and looking at everything, it wouldn't make a difference, okay? So I knew I could afford to let him be wrong. So I let him do what he thought was right. I said, okay, you're right, okay. And he did. Well, when the plane came back from its next flight, the pilots came back and repeated the same discrepancy. They said the same discrepancy was there. And he comes up to me, he goes, oh, so Petty Officer Gooseby, what was that you were saying? And the first thing I said to him was, well, first of all, I like your troubleshooting. I like what you did. I acknowledged him. So one of the most difficult things is me learning how to get people on my team. And once I figured that out, leadership became a whole lot easier. But again, I had to value and validate people where they were.
That's awesome, Keith. So I wanted to, since our last couple of minutes here with you, I think I really want to take a second to highlight kind of your next phase. So you've obviously achieved some great things already in your journey, and that's what we keep calling this, a journey, right? You know, goals are one thing, but it's really, you got to sit back and enjoy the journey. But so what is your next goal in life? What are you working on for your next big thing to give back? 'Cause I know that's what you're all about, brother.
Okay, so my next big thing is I'm moving into the area of life coaching, okay? And as I move into there, in fact, I just started the business. I don't have the website up yet, but I just, got the name, registered, et cetera. And I'm starting a business called Destination 8000, okay? And it's a life coaching and public speaking, okay? So here's what Destination 8000 is all about. And I have a nice logo for it as well. The Destination 8000 is about this. When people climb Mount Everest, the last stop before they go for the summit is at 8,000 meters. So my tagline is Destination 8,000. I'll take you to 8,000, and the summit is yours. So I'm going to equip you. Okay. So my next phase of life is helping to equip people so that they may achieve success. Now, here's why it's important that the summit is theirs and not mine. You see, when people succeed, I don't want them to look at me and say, I succeeded because of Keith. Well, what about when you're not around Keith anymore? No, I want you to know you succeeded because it was in you, because you had the tools and you used them correctly. But the same thing happens when it comes to failure. If you fail, I want you to take ownership, whether I fail or whether I succeed. So my next phase in life is helping people to achieve some higher goals, but to look inside themselves and to see that they are already equipped to achieve those goals. So that's my next phase in life, is going into life coaching.
Man, always, Keith, you're always looking to pay it forward and to pour into others, my man. So I just think that's awesome, dude. And as always, dude, just keep doing you, man. And for those who don't know, I mean, like I said, Keith sits there and he puts a lot, he's all over the place here, because you're still working with the Fleet and Family Service Center, right?
Correct.
That's awesome, man. Well, dude, again, thanks so much for your time, Keith. As always, you're an amazing mentor, amazing leader, and man, I just can't thank you enough for everything you do, brother.
All right,
man. Well, Keith, well, look, if I appreciate it. So we need to work on your bandwidth on your computer, but now we have our next guy